Welcome to the channel. Tonight we will receive another update, Season 19. So let's take a quick look at what we can expect in this update. As with previous content updates, there will be server maintenance starting on October 24th for Oceania, China, East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Europe servers, and on October 25th for servers in the both Americas. In feature updates, we can expect extension for challenge rift difficulties and immortal weekly reward changes.
The Vault Keepers of Fabled Treasures have increased their penchant for gold, bolstering their vast troves. Various changes have occurred to the Immortal Vault thanks to their newfound riches. The following updates have been made. Vault rewards have improved chances of rewarding improved gear. Players are no longer required to add items to the vault with challenge rifts. Items will be added to the vault at 3 AM server time on Monday and Saturday automatically. The gear available will be more proportionate to the class distribution among immortals. The new rules will take effect at 3 AM server time on October 30th. Battlegrounds changes. Based off community feedback, we noticed players were keen to receive their end-of-season rewards before the season's end occurs. To change this, we are including more rewards on ranking up. Players will now receive Reforged Stones every time they rank up until they reach Legendary rank.
And it's a cool quality of life change. We won't have to wait the whole season.
We have also changed the queuing for Battleground to ensure that, if a queued player is no longer online, they will be removed from the current queue to prevent the match from failing to start. Heliquary Boss Invulnerability Phase Removal. We have tweaked to Heliquary bosses, Cataraga and Offenub, to remove two invulnerability states from their fight. Daylight Savings Adjustment for Europe, to help give Wanderers a better chance to use the sun's warm visage and maximize their day. On October 25th, we're rolling back Europe's server time by 1 hour during the scheduled maintenance period.
We will also get some variety in Fractured Plane.
Fractured Plane adjustments. Fractured Plane returns with several changes that now augment the fabled halls in the following ways. Countdown chests now drop legendary gems. Set item bonuses can now be gained as blessings. The chance of finding blessing and challenge rooms has increased. Legendary affixes on gear have been strengthened. Blessings have been strengthened.
And of course the new Battle Pass 19th, Spawn of Destruction. But let's get to the most interesting thing, 40 to new legendary items.
Barbarian. Offhand, Wrath of the Berserker now enrages you when nearby enemies are bleeding, increasing damage by 6%. Chest. Chain Spear now throws a piercing spear that deals damage over time and causes enemies to bleed, which can stack. Spears can be thrown up to 2 times. Helm. Demoralize boosts your movement speed, causes damage to surrounding enemies, and makes you immune to control and hit effects. Main Hand. Demoralize now also detonates the wounds of nearby enemies, immediately resolving any continual damage effects. Pants. Chain Spear charges increase by 1. Shoulders. When Whirlwind hits the same target 3 times, it tears it apart, causing 554 damage per second for to 1.5 seconds.
So in the case of the Barbarian, we get some resistance to crowd control and the detonation effect of all dots, something that the Necromancer already has, but it doesn't work very well. I wonder how it will be in case of Barb.
Blood Knight Pants. While Abomination is active, your primary attacks cause enemies to bleed, dealing 491 damage per second for 3 seconds. Offhand, Ravage also deals an additional 435 damage to bleeding enemies. Main Hand. Whirling Strike is now activated up to 3 times, each strike causing enemies to bleed, with the strike knocking enemies into the air. Helm. Whirling Strike also increases your damage by 10% for 3 seconds. Shoulders. Swarm of Bats now passively sends bats to attack bleeding enemies and can be activated to deal damage to nearby bleeding enemies, causing the bats to return and heal you. Chest. Swarm of bats also destroys enemy armor, increasing damage dealt by 10% for 3 seconds.
In the case of the Blood Knight, decide Reviving Abomination and Ravage. I can see new DOTER build. This is where the essence that the Barbarian received would come in handy to maximize damage. However, I recommend checking out my previous video to see how effectively use dots.
Crusader. Helm. Consecration now calls intense holy flame that deals damage to yourself and nearby enemies. Offhand. Shield glare now surrounds you in protective light that damages and blinds nearby enemies when attacked. Pants. Shield charge now causes you to leap to a target location, gathering and damaging nearby enemies. Shoulders. Conjuration of Light's cooldown is reduced by 1 second for each attack received while active, triggering up to 4 times. Chest. Conjuration of Light now grants you an absorb shield. Main hand. Receiving damage from an enemy will cause your next Sacred Fire to detonate on hit, dealing 489 additional damage to nearby enemies.
I think that in the case of the Crusader, the best thing may be the dash he receives and blind for additional crowd control.
Demon Hunter. Helm. Sentry now summons a shadow arrow tower at the point you designate to attack nearby enemies. Offhand. Strafe summons a shadow to attack nearby enemies. This can be used up to 2 times. Pence. Activating Vengeance also creates a field for 5 seconds, allowing you and friendly summons to fire up to 1 additional bolt every 0.5 seconds, which causes 276 additional damage. Main hand. Smoke screen now creates a fog, making you instantly invisible, freeing you from current crowd control effects while also making you immune to knockback. Shoulders. When a knife trap is triggered near a sentry, that sentry gains 30% increased attack speed for 3 seconds. Chest. Vengeance summons your inner demon to continuously attack your target, but no longer passively increases your movement speed.
Interestingly, the Demon Hunter receives several summon-based skills. However, in my opinion, being immune to knockback should be most useful.
Monk. Shoulders. Wave of Light now protects you and surrounding allies with a large golden bell. Receiving damage while active creates a wave of damage to surrounding enemies. Chest. Wave of Light's range is increased by 20%. Offhand. Mystic Strike charges increased by 1. Pence. Mystic Strike now throws soul energy dealing damage when it hits an enemy and summoning a phantom to continuously attack the enemy. Helm. Inner Sanctuary now increases movement speed and primary attack damage for the player and their summons. Main hand. Mystic allies summons to spiritual entities that utilize Soulfire and Wine to attack the enemy. Necromancer. Offhand. Command Golem applies a vulnerability effect to surrounding enemies, increasing the damage they receive by 8%. Shoulders. Skeletal Mage damage is increased by 10% up to 40% for each different damage effect active on the enemy. Chest. Bone Armor applies as Cloak of Frost to you and your summons, damaging and chilling nearby enemies. Helm. Command Skeleton summons Rotting Zombies, damaging and slowing nearby enemies. Pence. When active, Bone Armor also increases critical hit rate by 20%. Main hand. Bone Spear destroys enemy armor, increasing critical damage dealt within 3 seconds by 35%.
And here's where it gets interesting. I don't know if this is a total misconception or another attempt to force us to play summons in PvP. However, if the new Bone Armor will work with a critical chance bonus, then it definitely is an interesting option. Additionally, critical damage with Bone Spear. but we lose teleport and fear. Is it worth it? To be honest, I don't think so, but we will see.
Wizard. Chest. Lightning Nova now releases a shockwave in the surrounding area. Enemies hit will continue to be damaged and briefly stunned. Shoulders. Disintegrate releases a sphere of energy that attacks enemies in range and dissolves their armor. Helm. Slow time now increases your attack speed, movement speed, and the rate at which skill area effects and continual damage resolve. Offhand. Lightning Nova's cooldown is reduced by 15%. Pants. Disintegrate cooldown is reduced by 1 second. Each time it hits a target, up to a maximum of 3 seconds. Main hand. Magic missile triggers an explosion. For every 3 magic missiles that hits an enemy, which causes 1099 damage to the area.
In the case of Wizard, I'm most curious about the new disintegration and new slow time. This skill will now be the complete opposite of its basic form. I don't know if I understood correctly, but it seems that it will also speed up tick dots and other effects, which is the only skill of this type in whole game. So that's it. As always, thanks for watching and see you after the update.